Hey everyone, my name is Carmody. Thanks so much for clicking on that video and giving us a shot. I work for GoPowerCat.com of 24/7 Sports. I cover Kansas State athletics. I am a teacher. I am a baseball coach in the springtime and in the summertime. And with all of that, I'm also a Kansas City Royals fan. I have been since the day that I was born. And today I am starting my own brand new YouTube series. Maybe we'll put it on some podcast providers. We'll see how this video goes, covering the Kansas City Royals. I'm going to try and post a video once or twice a week. And then when the season gets going, depending upon how things start shaking out, maybe I'll post more, maybe not. We'll just see kind of how it is received amongst you all. I am so very much excited to get going with this video. I've always wanted to do this truthfully. Ever since I really began interested in podcasting, I started to be interested in watching and consuming videos just like you all are doing right now. I've wanted to talk about the Kansas City Royals, and for a long time, I have not been able to talk about the Kansas City Royals. Nobody has wanted to talk about the Royals with me. They have not been very good, but through it all, I have been to the games. I was at the games and watching the likes of the Vinny Pasquintinos as a rookie, seeing Bobby Witt Jr. as a 21-year-old rookie, and even before that, all the dreadful times pre-2014. I remember going to Royals games and watching guys like David DeJesus and Gil Mesh. If you know those names, then you are a true Royals fan. And then fast forward to the Hunter Doziers of the world, the Ryan Goins, who, by the way, now is on a big league staff. I'm sure you all know the names. It's been a long time, but I think baseball in Kansas City is really going to be coming back around to what Kansas City Royals fans in the heyday, if you will, in the 1970s, in the 1980s, and fast forward to the mid-2010s, the 2015 World Series champion Kansas City Royals. That's the baseball we all know and love. And hopefully the Kansas City Royals can get back to that sooner rather than later. You can see behind me, Bobby Witt Jr. obviously is going to be a huge part of that. And as we get going with this video, normally I'm going to try and post videos on a semi-regular occurrence. Like I said, we'll see how that goes. We'll see how this is perceived by you all out there on the internet. But I do want to say this. I am very much excited to do this. So I really do appreciate you all coming along for the ride. Right now, I think I have like 2 subscribers, and one of them is my mother. So if you want to be one of my subscribers, that would be amazing. Hit that bell, get the notifications when we post, and drop a comment. I want to build this YouTube channel. We've done a great job over at Go Power Cat, but bringing you some baseball content, and maybe I'll put some more videos out there. We'll see how YouTube goes. I'm kind of interested in this. It's going to be a fun time. But today, let's just get into it. I want to talk Kansas City Royals baseball. I want to talk opening day projections. And as a Royals fan, I get very consumed with predictions. It seems like every time the Royals are mentioned in an article, I'll be sitting at work and looking at my computer. It's like, oh, they're only predicting them to win 75 games. Oh, that's okay. You know, any kind of winning baseball is good at this point. And we'll get into that a little bit later on in the month. By the time you're watching this, it's March 1st. Guys, it's baseball season. Opening day is later this month. High school baseball has started. College baseball has gotten underway. Kansas State obviously had already gotten a few series under its belt, but the Royals have been playing spring training games. Yes, there have been games on TV. I have seen it with my own eyes. It has actually happened. There's been people in Arizona supposedly. I don't know. If anybody's been down there, let me know and tell me how amazing the weather is. As it is here in Manhattan, Kansas, it's about 35 degrees outside as I record this on a Thursday night, but very much looking forward to opening day. And with opening day, spring is eternal hope. Is that what the saying is? I don't know. Somebody tell me, but it's fun. And baseball season's here, which means the Kansas City Royals are getting ready to break their camp from Surprise, Arizona in just over 3.5 weeks. So nobody can tell you what the roster is going to look like. There could very well be some moves made between now and then. We know the Royals love to do that. But I want to get into my roster projections based off of how it stands right now. 26 guys. The Royals typically carry 13 pitchers, 13 position players. So we'll take a look at it. Last year, it was a little bit different because MJ Melendez was a catcher. Now, obviously, he is strictly transitioned to the outfield. I still think they'll go 13 and 13. Just makes the most sense to me. But I want to start with the starting pitching. And with all the moves that the Royals have made this offseason, nothing has been better than the way they've improved their starting pitching. Undeniably speaking, this starting rotation is miles and miles better. And if you want to say, go back to last season with the trade of Aroldis Chapman, the Kansas City Royals traded Aroldis Chapman to the Texas Rangers, and in return, they got a flyer of a prospect who's an A-ball, but the headliner in that trade was a guy by the name of Cole Ragans. And if you've seen Cole Ragans pitch, I recommend watching some more of him. Anytime you can get Cole Ragans on your TV, it's worth the money. Cole Ragans shined in his Cactus League debut, 2 innings pitched, 5 strikeouts. This kid is legit. And I say kid, he's already had multiple Tommy John surgeries, but he's only 25 years old. This is a guy who has a very high ceiling and a very, very bright future in Kansas City. I believe he will be the ace of this rotation. I do not have him starting on opening day, but that is the first pitcher that Royals fans will need to keep an eye on once the season breaks. If Cole Ragans stays healthy, I'm not going to tell you to sports bet, but I am going to tell you that there is some value for a Cole Ragans leading the league in strikeouts. He had one of the best months in the history of a Royals pitcher in August of last season. I'm not saying that's going to happen on a normal basis. There will be hitters who adjust, and no doubt about it. But anytime you bring 102 from the left side in your first spring outing, it's pretty dang good. Cole Ragans, that is my pitch to watch in this rotation. A guy who does return from last year, but who will most likely be the most efficient pitcher on the staff. As for who's going to start opening day, if you would have told me Cole Ragans would start opening day at the end of last season, I said, oh, okay, that's good. It's probably the right choice. But the Royals have added 2 pitchers via free agency who I think actually have a better chance of starting on opening day. And my prediction as to who will start will be Michael Wacha, the former St. Louis Cardinal, San Diego Padre, Boston Red Sox. He's been around the block, but he had one of his best seasons of his career last year in San Diego with the Padres. Michael Wacha, 15 wins last year, had an outstanding season. This is a guy who has a great changeup. He is a veteran. There's no doubt about it. But he's pitched in some really big games. He's pitched in the playoffs. He's been a part of a lot of winning teams. This is a guy who the Royals prioritized through free agency. He was the second free agent pitcher they signed. But if John Sherman didn't open up his checkbook, they were not going to be able to land Michael Wacha. This is a guy who has a proven track record of being successful. Has he had some hiccups? There's no doubt about it. I don't believe he's pitched more than 130 innings in his entire career. So the odds of him getting hurt at some point this season are fairly high. But this Royals pitching staff has built depth, and I think that's what's really important. But I would be shocked, quite frankly, if Michael Wacha doesn't get to start on opening day. I know there's some conspiracy theories out there. He pitched not too long ago, and I think a lot of people did the math and said, oh, this lines up perfectly to where he'd be coming on opening day on 4 days rest. So we'll see if that's ultimately what they decide to do. But either way, Michael Wacha will be a mainstay in this rotation. The other free agent starting pitcher that I just referenced was a guy by the name of Seth Lugo. And this is a guy who pitched for the Mets for a long time. He was a reliever for a very long time until he converted to a full-time starter last season with the Padres. Once again, Michael Wacha's teammate. Seth Lugo is the first starting pitcher the Royals signed. They got him on a multi-year contract. This is another guy who is the definition of rock solid. He's not going to blow you away with his fastball. He's not going to blow you away with any of his pitches, but he's going to get the job done. He induces a lot of ground balls, and that's what they will need in a very spacious Kauffman Stadium. Those 3 guys, Cole Ragans, Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo, will be leading this rotation, and I believe that is a playoff rotation. You can win a playoff series with those 3 guys. But this rotation success, I think, hinges on the right arm of Brady Singer, who is the 4th pitcher in this staff. Look, Brady Singer has shown ace potential. Prior to 2023, he was a breakout candidate. He pitched with Team USA in the World Baseball Classic. Didn't go that well. But a lot of people believe that after his World Baseball Classic stint, that was part of the reason the beginning part of his season was so rocky. I think Brady Singer, you take the pressure off of him. He is your 4th best pitcher. He's going to shine. That 2-seam fastball he has, that sinker, just destroys right-handed hitters, and it makes lefties look like idiots when they try and back out of the box. I absolutely love Brady Singer's mentality. This is a guy who needs a bounce-back season. He's going to be playing for a contract here pretty soon. He has developed now a sweeper and a 4-seam fastball. We'll see the velo tick up a little bit with that 4-seam fastball. I'm interested to see how that plays, see maybe what the spin velocities, or the spin rates look like, as well as the velocity looks like on that pitch. But that's Brady Singer. The 5th spot in the rotation, I'm sorry, it's going to go to Jordan Lyles. I know that might be a sore spot for some Royals fans. Jordan Lyles was was the worst starting pitcher in all of baseball last season. but he's been working with tread, which is very similar to driveline, to try and add velocity and increase ground balls. He gave up the most home runs in the major leagues last season. The guy's a definition of an innings eater. Do I want Jordan Lyles to get beat out? Yeah, I do. Now, do I think that Jordan Lyles maybe could be better than last season? Well, yeah, I would hope so. His 2022 in Baltimore was really, really good by his standards. So I think the Royals are banking on that, but they're paying him, right? And, I hate the whole, they're paying him because it's the life of his contract. They're going to be paying him either way. So if he stinks, deuces. I mean, that's just how I would operate. So we'll see. I think Jordan Lyles breaks camp with this team, and I think he is the fifth starter. If he's not the fifth starter, he's going to be the long man in the bullpen. There's just no doubt about it. As we keep along with the pitching staff, I will start. I ranked my pitchers from, I would say, guys who are least likely to come in clutch situations to the guys that will close games and be in the 8th and 9th inning. I'll just start. I'll put Daniel Lynch in the 8th spot. I think that's either going to be Jordan Lyles or Daniel Lynch. I think Daniel Lynch, if he wins that 5th starter spot, he could be the 3rd or 4th best pitcher on this team. Daniel Lynch has the stuff. Gigantic lefty. He has not been able to stay healthy. Very highly touted prospect. I'm excited about Daniel Lynch. I want to see what he can do, but I'm not buying in on him just yet. I want to see him stay healthy. I want to see him put up results on the field before I'm ready to say he's going to get that 5th starter job. But I do think his stuff could play up in the bullpen a little bit. He throws a lot of pitches, which makes me think maybe, he's better suited as a starter, but he could be the long man if he's not the 5th starter. So I'll put Daniel Lynch there. The next guy I want to talk about is a guy by the name of Matt Sauer. Now, if you're saying, who the heck is that? That's because he's a Rule 5 draft pick. He has not pitched above Double-A in his career, but the Royals selected him in the Rule 5 draft, which means he has to stay on the roster for the entire season. It is an interesting strategy for a team that's trying to rebuild a bullpen, and there's a lot of guys that could probably that you could argue be in that spot for the bullpen. But I think Matt Sauer sticks around. If they have to send him to Triple-A, then they have to send him back to the Boston Red Sox, I believe is where he was drafted from. If not, they'll have to work out a trade with the Red Sox, and I really don't think the Royals want to do that. Matt Sauer has very quality stuff. He's a little bit old for Double-A. I think that's part of the reason he was unprotected, but the Royals like him. They've had success in the Rule 5 draft before. Brad Keller was a guy who they struck gold with, at least for about 2.5 years before he kind of fell off the face of the earth. Don't even think Brad Keller has a job right now, but he was successful with the Royals out of the bullpen. They moved him to the starting rotation. He was really good. Another success story Royals fans might be familiar with is Joakim Soria, one of the best closers in history of this organization. So I think, Matt Sauer, you put him in a bullpen where he doesn't have to be the guy, I think he can have some success. So I'm interested to see what happens there, but I would expect him to break camp. Another guy on this list who I think has fairly low expectations, but might actually be the best reliever in this entire bullpen is a guy by the name of John McMillan. John McMillan came up last season, and he was absolutely electric. He started the season in A-ball, made his way all the way up to the major leagues, throws 100 miles an hour, the undrafted rookie out of Texas Tech. I will put a caveat with that. He was undrafted in a year there was only 10 rounds. So that's part of that, but stuff is nasty. This is a guy who has closer stuff. He will be the closer of the Royals one day. It might even be by the end of this season. A guy who just his stuff plays up as well. I mean, his strikeout to walk ratio was absolutely ridiculous in the minor leagues. He finished the year on the injured list last season. Unfortunate for him. I would expect him to break camp with the Royals. I know they're really high on him. That's a guy to keep your eye on. Another guy the Royals are really high on in the bullpen, James McArthur. James McArthur, I was at his big league debut. It did not go so well. That was a game in which the Royals lost, I want to say, like 17-1. James McArthur gave up like 6 or 7 runs before he got an out. He was immediately sent to AAA afterwards. And that could have been very easily a DFA at some point, but the Royals believed in him. They stuck with him. He got the call back up to the Royals at the end of the season. And September was one of the best relievers in baseball. Now, I get it. It's September. Anybody can be a September warrior, but he did end up closing games for the Royals. I want to say he had 5 or 6 saves for this team. Had a really, really good breaking ball. I know that's what they're really excited him for. I would expect James McArthur to make this team, and I would expect him to get some high leverage in it. He's not going to have to be the closer, but he will make this team, and he will pitch a significant amount. The next guy on here I'll talk about is Chris Stratton. Fairly straightforward, longtime veteran for the Texas Rangers. They signed him in the offseason along with another few guys. We'll talk about Chris Stratton again. I've been trying to think of a comparison for you Royals fans. Remember Jason Frazier? This is a guy who didn't really wow you with anything, but he found a way to get outs in the 7th and 8th inning. That's going to be Chris Stratton. They're going to bring him in. He's going to have a 3.7 ERA. He's going to give up some home runs, but he's going to get a lot of people out. It's a very good addition for this ball club. Nick Anderson, another guy the Royals bring in from the Atlanta Braves, was with Matt Quatrero in Tampa Bay. He was a closer. He has faced some injuries, but this is a guy who I think has a really high ceiling. He's been a closer for a playoff team. Nothing else needs to be said. Nick Anderson, I really like this addition. Another addition the Royals just recently had was John Schreiber, bringing him in from Boston, the reliever. They traded for Daniel Sadlin, a minor league pitcher who I know the organization was really high on. This is a move that says we want to win right now. John Schreiber has been very average until 2 years ago, and he was elite. Last year, he was a little bit better than average. I would expect him to be the 8th inning guy. I think they're going to try and give him all the opportunities in the world. They've put a lot of investments into him. I would expect John Schreiber to be the 8th inning guy. And closing games for the Royals is another than former Royal and now current Royal and 3-time World Series champ Will Smith. Wherever Will Smith goes, the team just wins championships. That's just a fact. You can look it up. That means the Royals are going to win the World Series. No questions asked. I don't make the rules. Will Smith, he's going to be closing games for the Royals. He's led the league in saves at one point during his career. He started his career with the Royals. He made his big league debut for the Royals, signed with the Royals in the offseason, actually served as somewhat of a recruiter for this team. I really like Will Smith. He's not one of those guys that's going to blow you away with a 102-mile-an-hour fastball. Not a Aroldis Chapman, but he will get the job done. This is the first time in a long time that the Royals have a big league bullpen, and every single one of these guys can get hitters out, and you could see pitching in high leverage situations save Matt Sauer, Daniel Lynch, but even those two guys I think could eventually get to that point. A few guys I left off, Carlos Hernandez, it sounds like he might start the season on the injured list. Quatrero has talked. He has some arm issues. Otherwise, that's a guy I think you would probably put in there over Daniel Lynch. Steven Cruz, a guy who I was really high on when he made his big league debut, another guy that throws 98 miles an hour. He struggled at times, but that's a guy who, if he has a good spring, I could see him sneaking his way on there. Jake Brent's a guy who just came off of Tommy John surgery. Originally, since he's a lefty, I was going to put him in this projection, but I want to say he threw like 6 strikes and 30 pitches in his first outing. Again, I get it. It's his first outing in the spring. It doesn't really mean much, but I would imagine they would give him some innings in AAA before they give him the bump to the show. 2 guys I would like you guys to keep an eye on. That's Tyler Duffy and Dan Altavilla. These guys are non-roster invites. The Royals always seem to have a non-roster invite, break camp with a team. If I were to put money, I would say Tyler Duffy would be that guy, but we'll just have to wait and see. That's my bullpen projections along with some guys to watch. Now, take a break. Just kidding. I don't think we even have breaks in here. Who wants to sponsor this podcast? It's going to get like 50 views anyway, if I'm lucky. Moving on down the line to the lineup. Maikel Garcia at third base. Now, I put these in the order that I would probably see them hitting on opening day. Doesn't really matter, but Maikel Garcia is going to be the starting third baseman for this team. The big thing that people want to see is him hitting the ball in the air. And I know that's been a talking point amongst the media, the Kansas City media. I'm not so sure that's a good idea. And I know and I understand the exit velocity and the launch angle stuff. I get all of that. And I get he hits the ball really hard. So it makes sense for him to hit the ball in the air because that leads to home runs. But if they want him to be a leadoff hitter, I can't see them wanting him to compromise his on base and his hit for average, a guy who can probably hit 270, 275 this season, to maybe hit 15 home runs. I can't see them wanting to do that, and maybe they do. It wouldn't surprise me, but when you have a guy like Bobby Witt Jr., who is going to be your opening day shortstop, who's going to hit 30 to 35 home runs, you want that power production from the third baseman. Well, that's essentially what Bobby Witt is giving you. And so I don't necessarily agree that I think it's a good idea for Maikel Garcia to hit the ball in the air. I would say stay in your approach. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, who cares? Be you, get on base, steal some bases, and that way you set the table for your number 2 hitter. Going to be one of the best players in all of baseball. The face of the franchise gets an 11-year contract extension in the offseason. That's none other than Bobby Witt. What needs to be said about Junior besides the fact that I think if you're looking for a value MVP bet, if the Royals are going to win over their total that they have in Vegas, which is like 74.5, Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be in that conversation. Like, this kid is legit. He's a combination of Alex Rodriguez and I would say a Derek Jeter on defense. I mean, I know this is high praise, but like that's the kind of skill that Bobby Wood Jr. has. He has the potential to be a Mike Trout-like player. I mean, people have called me crazy when I've said that, but like you watch this kid play and he has all the tools. And I could sit here for 45 minutes and talk about Bobby because this guy is going to transform the Kansas City Royals. He's going to be the Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Royals. I don't even think there's any question about it. He might already be at that point. The next guy on the list, Vinny Pasquantino, the Pasquatch is back. Thank goodness. Vinny, welcome back to the Royals. We have missed you. We have missed your bat. We have missed your personality. Vinny Pasquantino, again, a guy with all-star potential. Got to bounce back from that injury. We'll see how that goes, but I would anticipate him to be ready. He's been playing in spring training. He says he's fully healthy. Vinny Pasquantino has a chance to be one of the best players in baseball at first base, and I think he will be the three-hole hitter and hit anywhere from 20 to 25, 30 home runs this season. You get Salvador Perez back behind the dish, the ageless wonder, Salvador Perez, age 34 season right now. It's incredible. A bounce back season for Salvi is incoming. I really believe that. I think that Salvi will bounce back after a rough season last year. And honestly, when we get to the bench, we'll talk a little bit about maybe why Salvi will be able to bounce back, but I think Salvi will have a very good season. He's not going to have to catch every day. He can DH. He can play a little first base. Salvador Perez will be the opening day catcher for the Kansas City Royals for what? Let's see. He broke in 2012. I want to say he probably caught opening day 2012. So this is going to be 2024. Let's see. He was out for a year. I'm doing math off the top of my head. This is not how you prepare. I want to say maybe 10 years. Somebody looked that up. I'll have to look that up after the show, but I believe it's probably about his 10th year catching for the Kansas City Royals. MJ Melendez will be in left field. This is a guy who they are banking on to be successful. Will he? Again, not really somebody I'm ready to count on, but they're going to have insurance with MJ. He will hit in the middle of the order. He led the minor leagues in home runs at one point in his career. If he can hit 25 home runs, get on base at a 330 clip, he is going to be a very productive big league player. This is a guy who can carry the middle of an order when he gets hot. I like MJ hitting in the middle of that order. New guy, Hunter Renfroe, the Kansas City Royals brought in from the Los Angeles Angels. This is a guy who's been around the block a little bit. He's with the Padres. He's with the Red Sox. He finished the season with the Reds last season. I like Hunter Renfroe. He has his faults, no doubt about it. He's got a rocket arm in right field. He doesn't hit for a lot of average. He doesn't really get on base, but when he's right, he hits a lot of home runs. And this is a guy who is, if he's hitting 6th or 5th in your lineup, that's probably pretty good. You don't need to rely on him as being a middle of the order, driving 100 runs kind of guy. But if he can hit 25 home runs and driving 80, that's going to be it's going to be a great season for Renfroe, and it's going to be a great season for the Royals. I like this signing. He's not the best defender, but he's good enough. He's serviceable. Again, put him in positions to be successful, and I think the Royals will be in a really good spot. Second base is an interesting position. It's going to be Michael Massey. Unless he just tanks in spring training, it's going to be Michael Massey. And again, another guy who I'm not sold on, but another guy who showed great potential last season. Again, this up and down, the Royals, if they're good, they can be really good. And if they're bad, then they're going to be replaced. The Royals did have bring in some bench guys to help out with that. But I like Michael Massey. If he's hitting 7th, I think it's a very deep lineup. This is another guy who can hit 20 home runs, plays Gold Glove defense. Him and Bobby have great chemistry up the middle. I like Michael Massey to break camp as the starting second baseman. As designated hitter, Nelson Velasquez. Who would have thought in the middle of the season, Nelly Nukes, as they called him, would be breaking camp as a DH. I really like this kid. He hits a lot of home runs. He hit like 17 home runs in 40 games for the Royals last season. He was on pace to hit more home runs than Aaron Judge. I don't think that is going to happen. But he has ridiculous pop. He has ridiculous power. This is a kid who's going to be very good and a very productive player for the Royals. Batting 9th, Kyle Isbell, starting center fielder for the Royals. I like Izzy. He plays great defense. Can he hit? I don't know. That's really all I got to say about Isbell. If he stinks, Drew Waters, he can come up and stink just as much. That's a position I think the Royals need to fix. I was a little disappointed they didn't address it in the offseason. They believe in Kyle Isbell. Rounding things out on the bench, Freddie Vermeen, backup catcher. The Royals brought in Austin Nola, a longtime veteran. I think they're going to stick with Vermeen. the hitting tools for Fermin is much better than there is for Nola. So that's something to keep an eye on. And maybe both these guys break camp, but it sounds like Freddie will be in position to be the backup catcher to Salvador Perez. Freddie's going to hit a lot. I think he ended around 275, hit 10 home runs. I like Freddie Fermin. I don't think he's anything special. I don't think he's anything more than a 240 hitter. I think he got hot last season because he got a lot of at-bats. I think as a backup, he'll hit 240, probably hit about 10 home runs. But if that's the case, man, if you can spell Salvi and do that, good for you. That's a really productive spot for the Royals. Adam Frazier, Garrett Hampson. Sorry, I'll group those guys together. Utility guys, veteran guys. Adam Frazier started on the Baltimore Orioles last season. Neither one of these guys is very good, but you put Hampson in against lefties, you put Frazier in against righties, and they can do some damage. So from that aspect, I like the signings. Will they be anything more than league average? Probably not. But do they have a chance to elevate this roster? I think so. I think you're building that depth, and it pushes guys like Nick Prado to the minor leagues. It pushes other guys like Drew Waters to the minor leagues, guys that have been mainstays in this lineup. They say, you know what? We trust the veterans to be successful. You guys go get everyday at-bats, and if they stink, if the guys that the veterans are replacing stink, then you can come up and take those bench roles. I think it's a great idea. I love what they're doing with building the depth. Every good team has to have depth. They have to use their 40-man roster. The way Matt Quatraro was around Tampa Bay when they managed their roster, I think all these guys on the bench are going to play a lot. So I like Garrett Hampson, and I like Adam Frazier a lot. Last guy on the bench, the 26th man, Dairon Blanco, the master bunter, the speedster, the 31-year-old rookie last season. This is a guy who I really enjoyed watching play last year. This is a guy who I think has a chance to be a really good fourth outfielder, come in and play against lefties, be that late game pinch runner. Think Gerard Dyson type. He hits from the right side. He hits for some pop, but this is a guy defense first, runs the bases extremely well, is able to bunt, won some games for the Royals on some bunts last year in base running. I think Dairon Blanco has a place on this roster. I didn't think I was going to say that at the end of last season, but I really like where this roster is headed. I like how it's constructed. And at the end of the day, it's going to be a fun season. I just went through 26 names probably way faster than anybody wanted to. I want to try and keep these podcasts around 20 to 30 minutes max. Again, once we start getting into the season, if this is something that you all would like to see continue, we'll be breaking down series and maybe getting a little deeper into the X's and O's so you can climb into the mind of a baseball coach and see what I see out there. It's going to be fun. Baseball season's here. I love it. I hope you all enjoy it just as much as I do. Thank you so much for the support. Like I said, please send this to your friends if you know they're a Royals fan. I'm going to put it on my social media. We'll see how it goes. Again, people's Royals, the way they take in Royals content varies, but I hope this is something that you all are interested in. I love talking about the Royals, and if the demand is there, I will be happy to share my thoughts on the Kansas City Royals. But for now, that's all I got. Thanks for listening so much. I don't have a name for this podcast. I haven't gotten that far. Hopefully I come up with one. We'll see. But either way, I'm Cole. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time.